And that's enough of me talking. And I'll invite formally Simon, our guest speaker, to the stage. Simon, so good to have you here. Let me stop sharing the slides so we can actually see you. So Simon, I contacted Simon, it's been a few years now. I think when I published the Mindful CIO manifesto 2018, he commented or shared, and then since then I've been harassing him to attend a number of events, and finally I succeeded, late last year, and he joined one of the first roundtables. And I was very impressed with Simon's, he published an article last year, in September last year, during the pandemic, about authentic leadership. And I'll let maybe him comment on that a little bit further. So Simon is the CTO of Pepperstone. I just found out recently that actually he has a 14-year-old son, 14, and
more.
More? You tell us more. And he's trying to impress him by becoming a speed cuba. So yes, so much. But actually, I don't want to be talking. I want to hand over to Simon. So Simon, let's start with you telling us a bit about your journey, how you became the CTO of Pepperstone, please.
Yeah, maybe I have got some slides. I can bring them up and show you. Actually, I'll do that because it tells.
Please do.
It tells my story quite well. So I'll just share.
Please do. Okay, perfect.
So can you guys see that? That's it?
Yes, we do.
Nice. All right. So obviously that's the front page. So we're going to be talking about this tonight. So I'm pretty sure you guys have all read the manifesto. So I'm going to be focusing on respecting healthy boundaries, and we'll come back to this. I want to talk a little bit about myself. I find it difficult to sort of explain really who is Simon Wilkinson in fairly simple words. And so I decided to do it with pictures. So up on the left there is a person who loves computers, and that's me. Ever since I was a kid, I just loved computers. I actually hacked my school's computer at age 12, got a scholarship to RMIT, and that's how I got on my journey. If the little guy down the bottom right-hand corner there sitting, that's not a photo of me, by the way. That's way too cute for me. But that's the little country boy in me. I grew up in the country, and I grew up in a rural community, and soon realised that I didn't want to milk cows for the rest of my life, so I wanted to do something exciting and interesting. The picture above there with the little baby, I've got actually 5 kids. I couldn't find a photo with 5 kids. So I have 5 children. My wife's a complete rock star. We could not raise them without her. I really love collaboration, and they're the hands there. I love working with people. And you've got Daniel's son over on the left-hand side over there. So growing up in a rural community, liking computers, enjoying things like Rubik's Cube, you tend to get picked on a little bit. So you either have to run or fight. So I learned how to fight. So I'm a 3rd Dan black belt in Goju-Ryu karate. I trained in Japan for 12 months. I was a live-in student for a long time. I could speak Japanese. And I also was the national karate champion for 6 years in a row, as well as winning the Oceania and Pan Pacific titles. So I learned how to fight, and I also learned how to meditate. So that's where we used to train under waterfalls and in the snow, and I can turn off certain parts of my body because I can meditate. I can control my mind. So this is part of who I am. Probably the most defining thing about me is I spent a lot of time working in Africa, and I worked for the World Bank, and I built some development projects in Africa, and I saw life and death up very close at a very early age, and it really affected me as a person. It created a sense of humanity in me that I think I'm very grateful for. And so they're all the 6 aspects of me: the geek, the fighter, the country boy, the father, the collaborator, and the I wouldn't call myself and the the foreign worker. So that's me. So I grew up. I've done some interesting things. I went to RMIT and studied computer science and did a master's and PhD and a few other bits and pieces. I've worked for a whole bunch of companies. I worked for the World Bank, as you saw just before. I've worked for a company called Aquella, which was a startup company, and I built that company along with a whole bunch of my friends. We sold that to a company called Pearson, which I then went and worked for, which was a publishing company. I then went and did some further study and then set up a company called Predictive Hire, and I was the founding CTO of that company, which is now, I think it's still around. Hope so, because I've got shares in it, so it's important. I then got out of that, did some work for IBM, worked for the Bendigo Bank and worked on some really interesting projects there. I also created this thing called the Domino's Pizza Scanner, and so worked for Domino's, put on about 15 kilos and created an artificial intelligence-based camera that would scan for pizza quality. And so I have a background in AI now, so I've built all that. I then went on to work as the head of technology for ANZ Bank and worked for them for a while, and that was exciting. It was interesting, and then I went and finally joined my role, got my role at Pepperstone, and with ANZ Bank, I probably had 200 people working for me. Lots of people interactions, more about the people than technology, and more about creating a great place for people to work. At Pepperstone, I've sort of carried that along a bit, and I've got probably 100 people under me at the moment. We've got doing some pretty amazing things, and I'm very focused around making sure that that they come to work. My mantra in my job is that every single person has the right to go home happy, and that's it. And so we work towards that goal, and we build a great community. A couple of things I want to talk about is my philosophy, and then I'm going to talk about the actual topic itself. So some of the old school things, you'll see a lot of the leaders, particularly CTOs and CEOs and anyone with a C in front of their title. My title means nothing to me, really. It's more about what I can do and what I can bring to the company. In the old school world, money is important, and money is the primary driver behind everything. And people are resources, and everything's results driven, and families are second, and your work is what it is. The new thinking that I have, the way I think is that people are very important. They're not commodities, and that you can build your company around people. And if you treat them like people and rather than commodities, you're going to get the best out of them, and then they will go home as better employees and members and families of the members of the community. I have my goal, and you can't see it, but I've got a sign above my desk. Your job today is to send home your people every day, so they're better fathers, daughters, mothers, and I really stick to that. I'm about actually people. The most complicated computer in the world, of course, is not the one on the right; it's the one on the left. It's a human, and they're very difficult to understand and difficult to. It's very, very rewarding to be able to lead a group of people and to see them grow and to see them succeed. One of the biggest problems that we've got in life, and I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, Michael, you into Lord of the Rings? Yes. You don't have to leave your things on mute. I prefer you guys to talk to me. It's a lot easier. A lot of people think that it's all about power and it's all about getting to the top, and it's not about that at all. It's about something completely a little bit deeper than that. And I've seen people who've been promoted into roles that they're not ready for, and without a level of humility and power, you end up in a situation where you've got this particular gentleman here. I think the other little guy's Gollum, who's probably the result of what has happened to him in the long term. So I really think that having the responsibility of building relationships and building companies where you've got good boundaries, where you can create an environment where people can flourish and where people can really work together and actually get the best out of each other is really my responsibility. I take this very, very seriously. My people are my responsibility during the day, but if all you want to get is power, then maybe you shouldn't be looking after people, and that's my view. Got a couple other smaller things to say. We need to invest in people who demonstrate integrity, promote others, who are empathetic and seek other people's opinions and give. We need to value our families, our mental health and physical health, other people and other people's opinions and our time. And a lot of the encroaching on our boundaries are on the bottom 5. We see people that work themselves to death practically, and their mental health and their physical health, particularly during COVID. I saw a lot of this. We had a particular couple of instances where people were clinically depressed because they weren't getting enough exercise, weren't getting enough sunlight, they weren't walking around, they weren't spending time just being present in the day and spending time with their families. My battery, I've got a very, very interesting job. I'm managing teams, I was just talking before, across 7 different continents across the globe. And if I wasn't able to plug into my battery, which is my family, then I wouldn't be able to do any of this. The other thing too is trusting and believing in other people is really important as well too, because if you think you're the smartest person in the room, then chances are you're not. And trusting and believing in them is really critical. My whole thing is that other people's opinions are really very important as well too, and we need to value them. And if we're not doing that, we're actually giving ourselves, it's a disservice to ourselves and our company. And the biggest one is our time. You know, like how many times do we sit in front of our computer and work until the long hours of the morning? And you know I do. I sometimes have to, and we make these pathetic excuses to our families about how this is going to be best for them and it's in the long term. And we lie to them. Right? We do. I'm sorry, we do. We say, yes, I'm working for you, but really, you're. And so one of the things I want to do is talk about boundaries, and working insane hours is some of the things that people do, and they do it all the time. I think last week I worked, a couple of 14-hour days, a couple of 16-hour days. It's crazy, and the speed at which things move these days. The other thing too, because of COVID, we can do these meetings and we can have them back to back. There's no walking to the next room to actually meet somebody. You're actually online all the time. If I flashed up my calendar on the other screen, you'd probably go, okay, and they're all virtual meetings. So we don't get up, we don't breathe the fresh air. The other thing too is believing that work will reward you for your sacrifice is complete rubbish. Getting that gold watch at the end of your 15 years or 20 years, big deal. You need to have that balance now. I'm guilty of all these things. That's why I can write about it, because there seems to be, and we break our promises to ourselves and those around us. We say, we're not going to work long hours, and we're not going to neglect our children, or we're not going to neglect this, or we do, right? And we do it consistently because we get into bad habits, and once we get into bad habits, it's very difficult to break. And we put our work before our families, and we justify it. And like I said, I've got 5 kids, and they grow up in front of my eyes. And sometimes, I was away for some of their life as well. And they don't shrink back again and become children. You lose that, and it's important that we give that. Breaking boundaries, we want to make sure that those boundaries, our time, working insane hours, but also what we tell ourselves to do this as well too is important. I'm interested. I'm actually going to read this next bit too. I'm interested in creating a bit of a movement as well too. I think having people who are mindful CIOs and CTOs and senior level people who care about people is very important for our industry right now, particularly post COVID. People out there are crying out for people who actually care about people, that are interested in making sure that they have healthy boundaries, and that they can work in an environment where they're looked after. I walk around the office and I talk to my team, and I just ask them how they are, and I talk to them about making sure they get enough sunlight, making sure they get enough time with their families, you know, and if any of our team or team members look like they're in any way depressed or tired, then, you know, I did this thing, and you can read this online. This was on LinkedIn. This is what Natalie was talking about earlier. I had I did an all hands. We had, I don't know, 100 people on the call or something, and we're talking to them. I said, rightio, how's everybody going during COVID? And I said, I want you to give me a fist of 5. Does everybody understand what a fist of 5 is? You sort of you go 1, 2, 3, and if two out of 5, or you can 5 out of 5 is you're really good, or 1 out of 5 is you need to really consider what you're doing, right? And but during COVID, people were going, you know, they were doing 3s, they were doing 4s, they were doing 2s, and I said, are you sure? And everyone's, yes, absolutely. And I said, right, everybody that put up 1 finger, you can finish at 1 o'clock today. People that put up 2 fingers, you can finish at 2 o'clock. People that finish at 3 o'clock, and then everybody was, like, of course, wanting to put up 1 finger, but nobody wants to really give you their accurate. Yeah, I thought it was funny too. They don't want to get that. They don't want to think about where they're at. They want to actually they want to hide it. And my article on authentic leadership is about telling people that it's okay to be not okay, and it's okay to actually, you know, say that you're struggling. And part of our boundaries is that, I think one of the things I didn't put on here was emotional boundaries, understanding where you are as a person, and particularly, I think, particularly as a male, guys, I think, really struggle to be, you know, to express their emotions. Some ladies as well too, but I know myself particularly struggled to actually write that article, because I wanted people to know that it's okay not to be okay. You know, boundaries for me is really important, because once you set the boundary, you've got to make sure that you can make sure that you reinforce it. And I talk to my kids about it all the time. So one of the things I wanted to talk to about today is having proper boundaries for every, you know, for us. I've been guilty of this over and over again. I don't spend enough time, and I've got a little garden shed here that's got a garden around me. I don't go outside, and I don't open up and breathe the fresh air and all of that. I'm a very different CTO in as much as that I'm focused on people. And I think what we need to do is we need to start a movement from the CIO, this mindful CIO group that focuses on people. And I think once we focus on people, then some of the things like, you know, some of the equity issues, some of the problems with, you know, people being bullied at work, all of this stuff can disappear, because you're actually creating environments where people can really flourish and enjoy their work. And I'm really looking forward to actually making a contribution to this group. I've been a little bit on again. I've been on again, off again, but I think we need to start this process, and I think it's time. I think people, yeah, and I think people are looking for answers. So that, I've got a big long thing I was going to read to you guys, but I think I've made my case. I'm like I said, it's time. I think we need to focus back again on people. Okay, that's it now.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Simon. And people, you know, people leadership is really the focus for us here. So totally aligned. And I'm so glad to hear that, you know, you're keen to be more involved. You know, if time permits, it will be great really to have you, you know, helping us out to spread the message. So much that I could comment. I'm conscious of time, but I think the key points for me that stood out for me, Simon, lovely to learn more about you, you know, personally, and a bit more about your journey. And yeah, it's okay not to be okay. So with your article, I got that sense as well. You know, giving permission, once we are vulnerable, we're giving permission to others to, you know, share that they're not okay as well. And takes courage to be vulnerable, isn't it? So heads off to you. So I do have a couple of questions that I'd like to cover real quick. Maybe we can do, you know, a short back and forward. So mindful leadership for you. What mindful leadership means to you?
Just authentic leadership. making sure that I'm like I said in my talk, I'm a people-centric person, making sure that you're authentic. I think if you're not being genuine, then you're actually not presenting the correct person and not actually being able to guide someone. Well, some of the best leaders in the world, it's not what they say, it's how they make you feel.
In terms of your self-care, so you mentioned you do karate, you practice mindfulness, so I was very impressed with all of that. So what would you say that your number one self-care strategy? What would that be?
Sunlight. Sunlight. It's amazing how the sun can just heal you. You walk outside and you just feel better. And it's not. I sit outside. I'll still do my karate. I actually do karate, kendo, judo, jiu-jitsu. I do all sorts of martial arts. But just walking outside and feeling the sun on your face, and I still meditate. Like I'll go outside and I'll just think about, and I don't probably not as well as the thing that you did before, but I just go outside and because my karate training taught me how to control things in my in my body. Probably not my emotions so much, but in my body, and I can just sort of calm myself. So if I'm having a hard day at work, I'll just go outside and sit there and think and meditate.
Cool. So maybe the final words, Simon, and if you could, I think you covered that with your talk already, but if I ask you, why do you think the mindful CIO community movement is important, and maybe some final thoughts for the group before we go to the breakout rooms?
The current way of leading people and thinking about, the thing is, we've got to be more present with our people. We've got to be more emotional. We've got to be more connected with them. We've got to be more realistic. And the way you do that is you're mindful, and that you think about these people. You actually bring them into your world. And if you don't spend time and actually center yourself and actually have a think about things, then it's impossible to actually see something from someone else's side. The world right now needs strong leadership, and it needs strong leadership and it needs people who think about others first. And if you cannot control yourself and be mindful and actually do that, then you will not have the ability to manage other people. And so I think this movement, and I'm a little bit, I think this movement's really important. I think we need to make sure that people understand that this is not just a group of people that meet just for the sake of meeting. I think it's important because the principles that we're trying to espouse, we're trying to look after people, and if we look after people, a lot of the problems at work, and I mentioned a few of them earlier, will go away, because it's not about ego, it's not about money, it's not about power. It's about people, and really that's where we need to go back to.
Gold. Thanks, Simon. I think we should finish with those wise words that I totally endorse. Very aligned with the research we did at the Mind of the Leader and our philosophy as well. Thank you so much for putting the effort to collect your thoughts and putting together in the presentation. That was really valuable for everyone, I'm pretty sure. So I will bring, if you could hang out with us, Simon, would be amazing. If you need to go, I totally understand. But it would be great to have you as part of the, the rest of the evening.